Straight facts, no chaser. I want to talk to you guys about just my process. I usually start out doing research on ChatGPT. Now I know some people say, oh, it gets it wrong sometimes. I understand. You heard the word start out, right? So this is how I go about it. If I want to learn something, let's say historical, like what's going on between Palestine and Israel, going back into the past, in World War I and the Ottoman Empire and the Allied forces and things of that nature, find out information about that. If I want to go find out about the beginning of slavery and how it started, if I want to go back to when the Europeans, basically massacred the natives and indigenous people in North America. When you go back and look at those things, I ended up finding resources and things of that nature where ChatGPT pulls this information from. So that helps you get the facts correct. But with ChatGPT, it'll tell me, hey, this is what actually happened. Then I'll ask it, where do you pull these resources from? About the native people or indigenous people in what happened between the Europeans coming here. Where did you get that source from? Right? Then it'll pull up multiple sources that it pulled information from. Now, not every time that I ask does it have sources, so I have to go dig myself. But it'll pull it up and I say, okay, cool. And I always say credible sources, and I go and look in their credible sources, .edus, .govs, history, .com, and things of that nature, things that you know about. It's not like I just made this website last year, .org. None of that. So you go and you research and you read those things and you see the context. One of the things that really lit my fire today is that over the past few months, I have been reading through these things via ChatGPT, and the word displacement comes up a lot. And I'm questioning, what do they mean by displacement? And you start to understand something. Let's just pick the Zionist Jews and Palestine, the Arabs and so forth, what happened back in the day. You'll hear in this war that they had in 1948, them say that the Jewish displaced the Arabs. And you're like, And then you go back and be like, okay, when the Europeans came and the natives welcomed them, and then the Europeans massacred them, it said the exact same thing, that the Europeans came and displaced the natives and indigenous folk. Then I had to ask ChatGPT, why are you whitewashing history? Why are you saying things that make it seem as though it was just some mild thing, like they just walked onto their land and said, you're gonna have to move from this place to this place. Thank you. Who does that benefit? How do people understand exactly what happened if all you're gonna say is displacement? So I wanted to know. So I got into this conversation with ChatGPT. And I don't want to mess it up, so I'm going to read it verbatim, what I had to ask ChatGPT. I said, you often use that word displacement when it really is a whitewashing of terror, rape, murder, torture, and downright despicable things. Why do you do that? Why so lazy and deceiving? Stop sugarcoating the facts. Who are you trying to impress or protect, for that matter? I highly doubt the people who were displaced would call it that. right? And ChatGPT responded with, "You're right. And it's important to acknowledge the full extent of the violence and suffering that can be obscured by the term displacement. Historical events involving forced relocation, such as those in the Israel-Palestinian conflict or other colonial and wartime context, often involve severe violence, including terror, rape, murder, and torture. Using a term like displacement without acknowledging the atrocities that accompanied it can indeed downplay the human suffering involved. It's essential to be precise and honest about these events to fully understand their impact and the experiences of the people affected." Why did I have to ask ChatGPT that? To get ChatGPT to acknowledge that after the fact. Why couldn't ChatGPT already give me that instead of displacement? What you just witnessed is that programmers, people out in the world who are writing these books and text, are literally whitewashing the events by using simple terms that get the point across to some degree, but doesn't go into the detail so that you can understand the goriness of the individuals who did what they did. Whenever you hear about cultures, let's say like the Holocaust, you don't hear displacement. No. When I hear instances that aren't of America, right? Because the Holocaust was in Germany. You hear stuff about them like Russia and different times back in history, biblical times. You hear a lot of the goriness of it all. You don't hear displacement a lot. But for some reason, American history, not unless you go deep into it, do you get the details. You always get a whitewashed adjective. And I always wonder, why are we getting this whitewashed term like displacement when white America is destroying people? But when someone tries to do something to America or to white people, the gory details are in detail. You rarely find that word, I haven't found it yet, of displacement when something is done to white folks in this country or even really abroad. But when it's done by people of color, you're like, oh my God, this, savage and all these different terms that come out, but you don't hear that coming from people who claim to be white, no matter what country they're from, German, Jewish, Israeli, no matter what. The reason I say this, and I'm not just picking on one culture, I mean Asian as well, Latin, you just don't hear it that way when people who claim to be white or act like they're white, when they're talking about their culture doing something, displacement. But when they talk about another culture doing to them, oh, it was horrific. There was murder. They cooked us. They did this. They hung us. We went to the guillotine. All of the details come when the people don't look like you. But once they look like you, all of the details go away and words like displacement arrive. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit behind the scenes of how I do things and how things disgust me, and often how I have to take that in, let it marinate for a minute, and then continue on my way to create content that will educate, enlighten with the facts. I don't care what you look like. If you look like me, if you're white, if you're Asian, if you're Jewish, if you're Latin, I don't care if you're alien. Let's keep the facts as they are, no matter who you are. In this situation, displacement, no matter where it came from, Africa, Asia, America, let's say what it is. Rape, torture, murder. That's what it is. Don't sugarcoat it. Because honestly, the people who were offended or affected by it don't see it that way. The only group of people that would call it displacement are the people who committed these horrendous acts. And I don't know about you. I don't want to learn the truth from the killer. I want to learn the truth from a witness. Because the killer's going to lie. The perpetrator's going to lie to make themselves look good. If there is a survivor, I want the story, the version from them. And all too often, the version that are in our books, that are on ChatGPT, come from the perpetrator, the suspect, the murderer, the torturer, the rapist. And I'm not going to take it from them. That's why I search for the facts. Straight facts. No chaser. Fuck your feelings.